This is the booth we're building today. This is for my day job co-host Jay, who wants to get into doing some more audiobooks and such. Now, for the sake of this comparison, we're trying to do this build cheaper than the Snap Studio option, which goes for about $500 US. Let's see if we can do it. And of course, at the end of this video, we're going to share the full price breakdown. And let me just say, the difference is absolutely shocking. This build is being done with MakerPipe. Now, there is a link below if you want to check them out. And if you've never seen what MakerPipe can do, they make these connectors that allow you to basically build anything with 3/4 inch conduit. Now, before I continue, I should tell you, MakerPipe is not sponsoring this video, though they did send me the connectors to get the job done. I'm not receiving any money from them. I just think the concept is really cool and that this is going to be a really cool build. Now, I'll put the full list of materials up here somewhere, and if you're really serious, I'll have the links down below for all this stuff, but if you need to, hit pause so you can check it all out. So for this, we're using 3/4 inch metal conduit. It's very strong stuff, and it doesn't warp or bend, or at least not easily. Now, there are a few ways to cut this stuff down to length. You can go the messy way with a hacksaw or a grinder, or you can just get a conduit cutter, which MakerPipe offers for sale on their website. You can also get them from your neighborhood hardware store, just so you know. Now, the biggest issue with hacksaw jobs, and grinders for that matter, is not only the mess, but the sharp pieces of steel left behind. The conduit cutter is clean, and the edges won't take your finger off. As for the moving blankets, I just got mine from a discount store. Now, what I wanted to do was start with the cheapest first. Now, remember, I'm trying to get this made as cheap as possible. So if it does work, there's no need to over-engineer this stuff. Also, Jay can just upgrade at any time if he needs something better. Now, those are the main materials. Of course, this whole thing was designed with the MakerPipe mini kit. I was able to get a general idea of the build, and most importantly, how many of the connectors I was going to need from MakerPipe. Honestly, the few dollars it cost was worth it for me. Having that 3D model helped out a lot for my material purchases. Now, the first thing I did was cut everything down to size. Some people like to build and cut at the same time, but I feel like it kind of gets me out of my flow, and it slows me down. Now that everything is cut, I start building from the bottom up. From here, the process should go pretty quick. Now, the MakerPipe solution here is actually very simple. The connectors clamp onto the pipe and you tighten them with a hex or an Allen key. That's pretty much it. Now, partway through the building process, I did make this thing 4x3. Not only for the ease of building, but also to keep it a relatively decent footprint for Jay. 4x4 does sound great in practice, but in reality, it takes up a ton of room. Also, I'm learning that shooting large projects like this is hard when your studio is no bigger than a postage stamp. Good God. Now, this piece here was one of the harder to get put together for the build, and I did 2 of them. Now, this is some 3/8 threaded rod that is threaded through the pipe with these pipe inserts. Then I cut the threaded rod to the desired length, and voila. Now you have a boom arm for the corner of the booth. This is one of the coolest features I liked about this. The second one will go on the other side for some sort of holder, and Jay can figure that out himself. Other than that, though, this booth was super simple to put together. Once the frame was up, I got some PEX clamps and used those to pin the blankets to the top of the build. Now, I was going to use grommets on the blanket. I even got a kit for them, but I'm trying to keep costs down and time as well, so I just settled on the PEX solution. Of course, you can also get moving blankets with the grommets in the blankets. If that's the case, just use some shower curtain hangers on it. Otherwise, if you're like me, the PEX clamps work great. And that's basically the build. But before we celebrate too much, we have to see exactly how good it is. Well, okay. Got it between a rock and a hard place here, or a booth and a booth. Here we're testing out the blanket booth. This is with very cheap blankets. In the kitchen, this is the worst case scenario. Lots of flat, hard surfaces, not much on the walls, not much clutter around either. This is the perfect scenario for your voice to just bounce off everything. So we're going to see how it compares between the Isovox and the booth. We're going to do the booth first, and then we'll do the Isovox using the exact same mic. This is the Rode NT2A. Now this is me speaking into the microphone from the booth. This is the red blanket booth. You can actually see my hand up top here. Oh, got a little gap there. And this is what it sounds like compared to the kitchen. So, of course, you do still hear a bit of reflection, but I'm wondering if that's all getting back into the microphone. What do you think, though? This is the NT2A in my kitchen in the blanket booth. Okay, then. Now let's take this microphone out and put it in the Isovox and see how it sounds. Right, then, now we have the NT2A in the Isovox. And you're going to notice this has a little bit of that boominess, that muddiness, that boxiness that comes along with the Isovox, which you just EQ out. Now I'm back in the booth, and one of the benefits there are to a booth like this, unlike the Isovox, is you can spend a bit more time in this booth. The Isovox only recommends about 90 seconds at a time before taking a bit of a break and walking around. With the booth, it won't quite get as hot, it won't quite get as stuffy, but at the same time, you will notice a bit more of that room kicking in. But this is also a much more expensive option. Now, the one thing this thing does have going for it is the ambient sound. And you'll notice a big difference in ambient sound in something like this. But once again, if you're just doing audiobooks like Jay is, you don't really need that, do you? What do you like? Do you like the blanket booth? Or do you like the Isovox? Let me know. I'm not going to lie, I was rather impressed by that display. I did cheap out on the blankets, and it's still doing the job. Of course, there are several different ways you can upgrade this, and it's not perfect. But it's pretty damn good in the worst case scenario of a kitchen. Who's doing voiceover in their kitchen? Now, that said, I also know Jay's surroundings, and he really doesn't need that much to clean up his audio. And if it is an issue, he can just put a couple blankets over the top to give him that extra little bit of help. Remember, this is a budget solution. Sure, you can go all ham on all this and make this thing a VO beast, but I kind of wanted to find out how cheap you could go, and I think this thing's a great start. Now, speaking of cheap, this is how much I spent. The final total on this thing was only $260. A little over half of what the Snap Studio costs. There is a ton of room for upgrades on the blankets. Even if you were to get rather decent blankets, you would still be under that $500 price point by quite a bit as well. So let me know what you think, and also, what do you think of MakerPipe? Also, what else do you think I should build with it? I have a couple ideas. It's brewing in here, man. Let me know down below. Cheers, and I will see you in the next video.